Hmm. Well, it was kind of the end of the career as a coach, 20 years of coaching basketball in the NBA. And
For years, people have assumed they already knew my answer. They'd ask who the greatest player I ever coached was, expecting me to say Michael Jordan before they even finished the question. And yes, he belongs at the top, but that's never been the story I truly wanted to tell. The names I remember most aren't just the men who won championships. They're the ones who quietly changed basketball forever, shaped the generations that followed, and left memories I'll carry for the rest of my life. If you had asked me many years ago which player first convinced me that basketball could become something far greater than simply putting a ball through a hoop, my answer would have been Julius Erving without a second of hesitation. It wouldn't have been Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, or Larry Bird. As extraordinary as those players became, Julius was the first one who truly changed the way I understood the game. That's something I've believed throughout my entire career. And even today, I don't think enough people fully appreciate what he gave to basketball. Most fans remember the soaring dunks, the graceful finishes, and the unforgettable highlights that still appear whenever the greatest moments in NBA history are discussed. Those plays deserve every bit of recognition they receive, but what stayed with me wasn't the applause afterward, it was the remarkable patience beforehand. Julius never looked rushed or desperate to force the action. Instead, he seemed to understand something. Many great players spend an entire career trying to learn that basketball rewards patience every bit as much as talent. He waited for defenders to make the smallest mistake, then attacked with complete confidence, making incredibly difficult plays appear effortless. As I gained more experience as a coach, I appreciated that quality even more. Coaches spend countless hours teaching players when to speed up and when to slow down, yet very few ever master that balance. Julius seemed to understand it naturally. He knew exactly when to explode toward the basket and when waiting one extra heartbeat would create a better opportunity. That kind of rhythm can't simply be taught. It comes from an extraordinary feel for the game. Looking back now, I realize Julius wasn't simply entertaining millions of fans. He was quietly expanding everyone's imagination about what basketball could become. Years later, I watched younger stars perform dazzling moves that people described as revolutionary, and I couldn't help smiling because I'd seen Julius create similar moments years before. That's how true pioneers influence a sport. They introduce ideas that future generations eventually accept as normal. Julius blended elegance, creativity, discipline, and intelligence in a way I'd never witnessed before. Even after everything I've been fortunate enough to see throughout my career, I still believe Julius Erving didn't simply elevate basketball, he expanded its possibilities and quietly changed its future forever. And just when I believed creativity and control had reached their highest expression, another remarkable player arrived and reminded me that the most dangerous weapon on a basketball court isn't always athletic ability. Sometimes it's a basketball mind operating several steps ahead of everyone else. The first time I watched Larry Bird, I immediately understood why so many people underestimated him before the game ever began. He didn't overwhelm anyone with blazing speed, impossible vertical leaps, or breathtaking athleticism. During warm-ups, he looked almost ordinary. If you'd never heard his name before, you might have wondered why coaches, players, and fans admired him so much. Then the opening tip arrived, and within only a handful of possessions, every doubt quietly disappeared. Larry possessed something that could never be measured by a stopwatch or a vertical jump. He controlled basketball with his mind. I've spent my career believing championships are won by intelligence long before they're won by physical ability, and Larry confirmed that belief every single night. He wasn't reacting to the game like everyone else, he was anticipating it. Before a teammate realized there was an opening, Larry had already seen it. Before a defender recognized the danger, the basketball had already reached exactly the right spot. Coaching a player like that is one of the greatest privileges a coach can experience because eventually you stop directing every possession. Instead, you simply watch him solve problems before those problems fully develop. People naturally remember Larry as one of the greatest shooters basketball has ever known, and they have every reason to. But if you ask me what truly separated him from everyone else, it wasn't simply the shots he made, it was the way he made extraordinarily difficult basketball appear remarkably simple. He understood when to attack, when to wait, when one extra pass created a better opportunity than forcing his own shot. and when a perfectly timed screen accomplished more than individual brilliance ever could. Those quiet decisions rarely appeared on highlight reels, yet they won games long before the final buzzer sounded. His competitiveness impressed me just as deeply. Larry never needed emotional speeches or dramatic celebrations because his preparation had already answered every question before the opening tip. Looking back now, I honestly believe Larry Bird changed the way an entire generation thought about greatness. He proved that anticipation, discipline, patience, and intelligence could dominate this sport just as completely as athletic ability. Just when I believed I'd witnessed the highest level of basketball intelligence imaginable, another extraordinary young player arrived and introduced an entirely different kind of brilliance that would transform the NBA forever. I still remember the excitement surrounding Magic Johnson long before he ever stepped onto an NBA court. Everywhere you look, people were talking about the smiling young man from Michigan State who stood nearly 7 feet tall yet insisted on playing point guard. At the time, it sounded almost impossible because basketball had always followed certain expectations. Bigger players were expected to stay near the basket, while smaller guards directed the offense. Magic ignored those unwritten rules from the very beginning and soon changed the way people thought about every position on the floor. Once I finally had the chance to watch him closely, I realized all the conversation about his height had completely overlooked what truly made him extraordinary. His greatest gift wasn't his size or even his passing ability alone. It was the remarkable way he understood basketball. The instant the ball touched his hands, the entire game seemed to slow down for him while speeding up for everyone else. He never looked rushed, yet every possession unfolded exactly as he imagined because his mind had already moved several steps ahead. Before defenders recognized an opening, Magic had already created it. Before teammates realized they were available, the basketball was already arriving perfectly into their hands. I've always believed the greatest point guards do far more than organize an offense. They transform the confidence of everyone around them, and Magic accomplished that better than almost anyone I've ever seen. Players who had gone several possessions without touching the ball suddenly became fully engaged because they trusted that if they ran the floor or made the right cut, Magic would find them. That trust changed entire teams. Every player felt included, valued, and capable of contributing to victory. Magic never seemed interested in proving he could score more than everyone else. He measured greatness by how much better he made the people around him. His rivalry with Larry Bird became one of the greatest gifts basketball has ever received because they challenged one another in completely different ways. Larry demanded precision and discipline. Magic inspired creativity and belief. Together, they revived the NBA at exactly the right moment, bringing excitement to a league that desperately needed new life. Looking back today, I remember Magic Johnson as the player who reminded millions of fans that basketball could be joyful, creative, and selfless. Even after everything Magic accomplished, another relentless competitor would soon convince me that I was about to witness the greatest player I would ever have the privilege to coach. By the time Michael Jordan entered my life as a player, people already believed they were looking at someone extraordinary. They saw the soaring dunks, the impossible hang time, and the scoring explosions that filled arenas with excitement. What they couldn't see, at least not yet, was the part that convinced me he would eventually become the greatest player I'd ever coach. It wasn't his athletic ability, remarkable as it was. It wasn't the championships, because we hadn't won them yet. It was the way he treated every weakness as if it were a personal insult. Most great players are satisfied once they've become better than everyone else around them. Michael wasn't. The moment he mastered one part of his game, he immediately searched for another flaw to eliminate. I'd never seen anything quite like it. There were practices when everyone else believed we'd already done enough, yet Michael kept demanding more from himself. If he missed a defensive rotation, he remembered it. If he settled for a poor shot, he replayed it in his mind long after practice ended. That relentless pursuit of improvement wasn't something anyone could teach. It came from somewhere much deeper. Early in his career, Michael could overwhelm opponents almost by himself, but winning championships required a completely different version of him. He had to trust the triangle offense. He had to believe that making the right pass could be just as important as making the spectacular shot. More importantly, he had to allow others to share the responsibility of winning. That transformation remains one of the most impressive things I've ever witnessed. Many superstars ask their teammates to adapt around them, Michael eventually adapted himself to what the team needed most. That's what elevated him from an incredible scorer to an unforgettable leader. Some people misunderstood his intensity. They believed he expected too much from those around him. Living through those years, I saw something different. Michael never demanded anything from another player that he wasn't already demanding from himself. His standards weren't unfair, they were simply relentless. Looking back now, after everything I've experienced in basketball, I don't remember Michael because of 6 championship rings or unforgettable finals performances. I remember him because every single day he chased a version of himself that didn't exist yet. Very few athletes ever reach that point. Even fewer stay there. And while Michael eventually became the complete package, there was still one player who taught me a lesson about greatness that had nothing to do with spectacular moments at all. When people talk about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the conversation almost always begins with the skyhook, and I certainly understand why. It remains the most unstoppable shot I've ever witnessed in basketball. Entire coaching staffs spent years studying film, adjusting defensive schemes, and searching for some reliable way to stop it, yet almost every one of them came away frustrated. Defenders knew exactly what Kareem wanted to do, they understood where he preferred to catch the ball, and they still couldn't prevent it. That alone tells you how extraordinary he was. But if you ask me what truly made Kareem unforgettable, my answer has never been the skyhook itself. It was the discipline that made the skyhook so dependable for so many years. Long before I ever had the privilege of coaching him with the Lakers, I admired the consistency that defined his entire career. One great season can happen because of talent. A few outstanding years can happen because everything falls into place. But remaining elite for 2 decades requires something far deeper. Talent may open the door, but discipline is what keeps it open. Kareem understood that better than almost anyone I've ever known. Every practice reflected the same professional approach because his habits never changed. Whether there were thousands of reporters watching or only a handful of assistants in the gym, he prepared with exactly the same seriousness. He respected the game enough to know that excellence isn't created under bright lights. It's created during quiet mornings, repetitive drills, exhausting workouts, and countless ordinary days that nobody outside the organization ever sees. When I finally coached him, I understood why younger players naturally looked to him for guidance. Kareem didn't need dramatic speeches or emotional displays to earn anyone's respect. He led by showing up every single day with the same commitment and the same standards. He taught his teammates that professionalism isn't reserved for nationally televised games or playoff moments. It's a responsibility you carry into every practice, every workout, and every possession. Looking back now, I often think about the remarkable players who shaped my understanding of basketball. Julius Erving expanded the imagination of the game. Larry Bird proved intelligence could dominate as completely as athletic ability. Magic Johnson reminded us that leadership makes everyone around you better. Michael Jordan showed what happens when extraordinary talent refuses to stop improving. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar completed that picture by demonstrating that greatness isn't sustained by emotion or reputation. It's sustained by discipline, patience, humility, and thousands of invisible decisions made long before the crowd ever rises to applaud. Looking back, I realized greatness was never just about winning championships. It was about character, sacrifice, and inspiring others to dream bigger than they thought possible. I was fortunate to witness 5 extraordinary men who changed basketball in 5 different ways. Their records may someday be broken, but their impact never will. That's the legacy I remember most, and I hope future generations never stop chasing it.